Right, guys, welcome back. This is the Above Average FPL podcast. My name is Adam. Always, I'm joined by Baker. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I was really hoping you were going to do the intro.
I didn't want to do it. I thought
You did want to do it.
I did want to do it, but I didn't ask. So I almost asked Alon to do it, but there we go. There we go. Yeah. So for anybody watching, you can already see who we've got on this week. For anyone listening, we have Alon from FML FPL joining us. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm fine. I'm ready to rock.
You're the most excited person I've ever seen wanting to join the podcast. We were literally waiting like half an hour. We always do like a thing half an hour. I get him on Zoom half an hour before, and Alon was like, "Where's my invite? Have I missed it? Have I missed it?" Like 3 minutes before 8 o'clock.
I'm just on time. I'm just maybe getting older. I don't know what it is. I'm just on time for shit. I set my phone alarm. Boom, 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 and then I'm just ready. I'm ready.
Good man. Good man. Well, no, mate, we're glad to have you on. Yeah, we're gonna have a chat about what has happened so far in pre-season. Not so much on like results and stuff, but what it means for certain players, how certain teams are looking, etc. We've got a bit on, the first few game weeks and, things like over 2.5 goals, stats and clean sheet probabilities. Then looking again at how players start quickly, actual points, FPL review, that kind of thing. And then we'll have a look at your draft and see how you're getting on. Because we've got 8 days. So
that's insane, man.
It feels like this is definitely the fun part, though, is all the pre-season stuff. Everyone's starting to vibe now. All the content's flowing. It's good fun.
Yeah, I was talking to someone recently, and they were like asking about, the podcast, blah blah. Like, yeah, the season starts next month, right? And I was like, no, it starts a week from Friday. I was like, this is fucking prime time. Yeah, I was like, I'm potting every day this week, and they're like, what?
Quality, man. Qualities. Yeah. And we've got guys in the chat on YouTube as well. So welcome to everyone on YouTube. See you guys firing in your messages there. We don't have slow mode on the chat, so just throw in whatever you want. And any questions you have for us, for Alon, just throw them in there. And if they're useful, and I can chuck them up on screen. So just as an example, hello gents, FPL Kante's in there, walking D3-4D. Let's go. So yeah, if it's any good, we can chuck it on there. Basically.
Skills, mate.
How you doing, everyone?
Cool. So yeah, Alon, just for anybody that doesn't know you, tell them about FML FPL, why you run it and why you do it, how long you've been doing it, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we've been going, I don't have the exact date, but I would get, it's at least the 7th season. It might be the 8th season we've been doing it. So we're one of the OG FPL pods. I can confidently say that. I think back in the day, it was mostly like FFS. Like Fantasy Football Scout was just where everyone was. The comment section on every post was basically like the forum. That is what FPL Twitter now is, basically. But Walsh and I are just a couple best friends since we're like 5 years old. And we've been playing fantasy sports together for 20 years now. And we just weren't that happy with the other podcasts out there. It just wasn't the style that we were used to with like how fantasy NFL and fantasy NBA, like those podcasts are much more like raucous and emotional and like that kind of stuff. We're just like, we're not getting that from anything. So we're just like, should we just start a podcast? And we just started a podcast. And there's this like moment in one of the early episodes where because I used to try and keep everything really organized, like we're gonna do this, and Walsh was just like, I can't fucking do this, dude. And we just both crumpled up a piece of paper and threw them out. And I feel like that was the moment where we like became FML FPL.
Cool, man. You got a question? Do you do the okay every time, or is it pre-recorded?
Literally every single time. And if you listen to the most recent episode, or even better, watch it on YouTube, you see a false start. Yeah, I literally do it twice in the span of like 30 seconds because Walsh accidentally muted his mic. And so I was like, let's just fucking start over. And then I do another okay.
Can you do it on request? Because they want to hear it.
Oh my God. I don't know, man. Not this early. Let's go later into the pod.
Oh man, cool. Right, let's clear that off. So cool. Well, as I say, no, really happy to have you on. It's just going to be, Baker and I are fairly similar in that we try and do a bit of planning for it, but ultimately we end up going off on tangents, and it just ends up being a chat between us. We haven't been mates as long as you and Walsh, but it's good to have that chemistry between someone actually you get along with outside of FPL Twitter, or even before FPL Twitter existed in your sort of friendship type thing. I think that's really cool to have. Cool. So I'm going to do a couple of quick admin bits, and then we're going to get into it. Sound good?
Cool.
Let's go.
Sounds good. So, as always, guys, the podcast and YouTube is supported by our good friend Dan. He is a games analyst for the play to earn crypto space. Currently working with a company called YGG, and go and follow him on Twitter at CryptoBlockDan. He keeps the lights on for us at the moment, which is excellent, and we appreciate all the support. He's also playing FPL this year, so you'll see his team on Twitter and stuff like that. We might share it occasionally, see how he's doing, and go give him a follow. Also, we are working with the guys over at FPL Tips. So FPL Tips is a weekly newsletter that basically comes out to your email inbox. You just provide your email address and you get a wonderful set of stats, information, everything that's been going on in the last week, right to your inbox. It's normally like a 5-minute read. There's a quality bit of information on one of their secret emails, which you'll have to work a little bit harder to get hold of. And a bit from Fantasy Podden, who finished 18th in the world this year, last year I should say, that came through today, which is really cool. So it's a really cool little concept that they're doing, and they're doing fantastically. Last week we said they were on 3,000, just past 4,000. They're almost at 5,000 now. So get yourself this newsletter every single week. The link to do so, which is our link, is down in the description below. If you do that, we get a little something, so it really helps us out. So that would be great. Follow us all on Twitter, and podcast is available on Spotify, Google, Apple, everything like that. YouTube, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff. League code. So come and join us in our league. As I've mentioned, every single pod almost. Jamie won it last year, and our code is UAT148. The auto join link is also in the description below. Sweet.
We're there.
We're there. I feel like despite doing things like that every single week, I feel like I'm getting slightly better at it every single time. So it's good. It's good.
You are, mate. You're a pro.
Pre-season.
Well, what about Liverpool? Let's just maybe Liverpool.
See, this is what we just said. We had this nice plan, and then we've just gone sacked it off like 2 minutes into.
Well, I've just seen Luke in the chat just mentioned Diaz goal just offside, and we got a Liverpool fan. We've had a couple of Man United fans on recently, and we have to ask them stuff about it. So, you are a Liverpool fan.
True.
How are you feeling about the start of the season? No Mane, what that means, and
yeah. I mean, I just think we're still. By the way, I say we. Americans just say we when they talk about the teams they support. Yeah, so I think we're just clearly still the top 2 team, probably in Europe, but at least in the league. And I don't think there's enough to change that. Obviously, right now, this second, if I was to say who's better, Mane or Darwin, it's obviously Mane. Like, Darwin's super young and raw and unproven. But how much does Liverpool actually lose by, Jota, Darwin, Bobby playing some of those minutes? It's hard to quantify, like, I'm not really sure what that answer is. And we didn't strengthen necessarily, but part of that is because, Spurs were going to buy Diaz. That was going to be this summer's purchase for Liverpool. That's very clear. And, people forget that he came in the middle of the season, no training, just straight in, just got to perform. So I expect more from him. I think that like a lot of the things we saw with Diaz that turned people off, maybe, the shots from like the top of the box and stuff like that. To me, that will get like trained out of him. Like, to me, that's just him sort of freestyling and being awesome and just do what you can. And it's less of like, this is how Liverpool are going to play from now on. I think that we'll see a different Diaz, and a better Diaz will be, better shot selection, more creativity, more just possession, just like not ending a possession with a speculative shot, recycle possession the Liverpool way until we get a good shot, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I think the team, it's a great team.
Do you think that not changing anything elsewhere on the pitch is gonna have an impact on you this season? Because they're very much focused on Nunes and Diaz being like the two signings, but your mid three and your back four, and I mean, okay, you're going to get probably some more minutes out of Konate in the league, perhaps, but outside of that, like a Konate versus Matip, there's no real difference in everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really subtle, but I think Liverpool kind of does change every year in just small ways to account for, either the way they're being defended or slight changes in personnel, or just like an addition, like almost learning a new skill to like, let's do this thing now instead of that thing because it works better against teams that do XYZ, And I think that the Darwin change, like we'll have to see how it changes the team. I think in my head, I was actually thinking about it today a little bit, and Liverpool will always line up in a 4-3-3 on paper, but that doesn't really mean anything to like how they actually look on the pitch and how they set up. I think that like we might find more times than not this season that they're in almost more of a 4-2-3-1. And part of that is because and this is basically like if Darwin or Jota are at the 9, which I think they'll play the majority of the 9 minutes, but neither of them are very good like in possession or just as passers, like certainly nowhere near the level of like Firmino. And I feel like they're much more just like shot monsters and goal scorers and tap-ins and runs into the box and headers and, like a more traditional 9 in a way. So I'm wondering like, what does that mean for Liverpool? And it might mean that we need a little bit of creativity in midfield. And I feel like this conversation always happens in the Klopp era, and then it just ends up being, fucking Milner, Hendo, and Wijnaldum, and like there's no creativity at all, and it doesn't matter, and we're still fucking amazing. But like in my head, I'm like, yeah, maybe it's Keita, maybe like Harvey Elliott gets some minutes, maybe Carvalho gets some minutes, and that means that like it's more of a double pivot of like Fabinho and Thiago rather than like a 3-man midfield. I don't know, and we'll have to see as it goes on, but I think there will be little tweaks. Yeah.
Do you think, and because I remember you saying, I think it was you saying anyway, it was about like Hendo is a real key for Trent and for Mo because of that sort of triangle, the way they play that he. Yeah. So do you think Hendo is good for this season? Like, is he still looking for the World Cup? Is he still thinking that's?
I mean, he'll go because I feel like he's like sort of the locker room captain. He's like the daddy of the team. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, he's older, he's had a lot of injury problems. He just has this like nagging heel problem that hasn't gone away in like 5 years. He like struggles to play 2 games in a row. I think he's like sort of more of a backup for Fabinho at this point than he is like we're going to depend on him week in, week out. But the other thing is it could mean, and I think we did start to see a bit of this last season, that Trent is basically that 10.
Yeah.
And then that means that the 3-man midfield, like Hendo or whoever's on the right side, is basically just playing right back and just covering for Trent. Because Trent was coming inside a lot last season, like way more than he used to. It used to be a lot more crosses, and he was just in there, like in the middle of the pitch at the top of the box, and so maybe that's the solution. Maybe it's not a midfielder. Maybe it's just Trent.
I mean,
one of those Darwin goals happened, didn't it? One of the Darwin goals, he was on the inside forward.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we noticed that in the second half of last season when his bonus capabilities just fell to the floor because he was essentially, trying more difficult passes, and his pass completion would drop, and he wouldn't be creating so many chances as he would do by whipping balls in, and getting those little flicks off Mane's toe or Jota's head that goes wide. Just those things that tick over. He wasn't getting those things when he was coming inside, and that was quite clear, which is interesting. I don't think a lot of people want that Trent this season for sure.
But then again, if he turns like 2 goals into 5 goals or something like that, then all of a sudden we want that Trent. So.
Yeah, that second season of playing that position,
right,
affects it. Well, you know, he played it for half a season. It's a bit like the Diaz thing, isn't it? He kind of switched his position at Christmas, as did Diaz, and now actually they've had a whole pre-season to play. It could come out and be like obscene. So then, sounds to me like Diaz over Robbo.
I mean, that's how I've had it for a while. I think the thing that Walsh and I said like still basically stands, where it's like, you know, Robbo's great and he's consistent and he's gonna score in and around 200 points, and Liverpool are gonna be great. Diaz, at the rate that he was going last year, you know, in like 1,000 minutes or something like that, was probably more of like a 180 point player or something, you know, less than Robbo. But the thing with Diaz that Robbo doesn't have is that we don't know what his ceiling is. He could just score 220 points this season and we'd just be like, yeah, he's really good. So that's something that's very attractive. And then I think the other thing, at least in the way I've been tinkering, and I'm curious if it's the same with you guys, is I feel like there's just so many defenders I want. So like there's more than 5. Like I want 10 defenders. 10 defenders, and I just can't.
It's our
like,
first.
Yeah, I know. And so I just, you know, like that almost makes it easier for me to just go against Robbo and just be like, I can supplant that with Perisic and Reese and Zinchenko and Trips and whatever, who are all picks I also really like, and they're way cheaper than Robbo, and that lets me go from like a puntier mid to Diaz, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, I think I like that combo more.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Every time I come off Diaz, I just think the attack just looks so good, and I just think there's loads of people that are just looking at it and saying, I think, like you said, 180 point season or those things season. Who cares, mate? Like literally, we're all gonna wild card in a month. Like, we're not picking people now that we care about. We just got to look at those first 5, 6 games, 7, 8 games.
I mean, Diaz had double-digit returns in a third of the games that he was involved in.
Yeah, I mean,
so just last season. So just for context, that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, but again, I still think there's plenty of 8 million midfielders. As well. That's the thing. I mean, you look at like Kulusevski. I mean, I wonder about I wonder how Jesus is going to enable Saka some more potentially, but I think out of anything, I'd probably rather go forward than go with Saka. Who else is in there? Mount's in there. I mean, where else are the forward points going to come from for Chelsea?
Kulusevski.
I mentioned Kulu already. Maddison, obviously. But
yeah, I mean, I like all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at like 6 game runs over the last season. And, you know, Maddison comes out quite poorly because he started quite slow. And over the first sort of 6 or 7, well, from game week 1 to game week 12, he didn't put a run together of 6 games where he scored more than 15 points.
That's crazy.
Which isn't great. Conversely, if you look at, I mean, I know we're going back up to Salah now, but conversely, Salah, that was the best period of the year for him. Even if you incorporate some of the doubles at the end of the season, he never had a set of game weeks that were as high as his game week 4 to 9, which was 77 points, which is just
that's crazy, man.
Mental. Yeah.
So crazy. Liverpool and Mo.
No, I cannot entertain the idea of no Mo. If there's, you know, maybe last year, whatever, you can talk yourself into it. AFCON, you know, no summer off. I think there were maybe more reasons, but like, there's nothing. He's the best player in the history of FPL. He's the best player currently in FPL. He has an incredible run of fixtures. They play a game a week. He has had a summer off, which is not usually the case. He has winter off, you know, just looking down the line. And there's like literally nothing. Like if you want to wild card him out in game week 8, when he has at Chelsea, home Brighton, at Arsenal, home City, home West Ham, and that's the week, you know, that's the period you go for like Son, Kane, whatever it is. I don't know what the fixtures are for the other teams then. I get it, and we'll reevaluate then. We'll talk about it then. But not going with him game week 1, I think, is just absolute suicide. Like, it's just like right now, everyone is thinking cap Mo game week 1, cap Holland game week 2. Okay, what do you do if Mo hat tricks in game week 1?
It's exactly. I can't get that out of my brain.
You're telling me you're not going to captain him home Palace after what he's done at the beginning of every season for the last 5 seasons, where he's just the best thing the world has ever seen? It's just ridiculous.
Mate, there was 1 million people captain him when he was at AFCON.
I just
that's the ridiculous part.
It's just and people think of it. I think people tend to look at 56.5% ownership and be like, oh, everyone owns him. It doesn't feel good. 44% of people don't own Mo. You get double Mo points against 44% of the field that's captaining someone else. Take it to the bank. Take the free stuff while you have it.
Yeah.
Because by the time it's game week 4, he's going to be 85% owned.
Yeah. I think
so. This is a gift.
Yeah. I think, and going back to and that's exactly in line with what I mentioned with his start. And you said it, that he doesn't have the AFCON hangover. He doesn't have the fatigue hangover when he comes back as well. So, and you were saying it before we went live, and you said before Baker even came on, it was like, do we just get 2 start of the season Mo Salahs where he just absolutely rips it to pieces?
Very possible.
Yeah, it sounds too difficult even for me to go against. But I'm encouraged by the fact that the game's given people options, which actually I think makes it more interesting, more fun. Because fine, as you say, 44% are not going to have Salah, but that 44% probably have Son, or they have KDB. So it gives there's and they're players that can pop off as well. We know that. I think everyone that's got Salah's not sitting there going, well, everyone else is rubbish. I mean, we know people know that Son and KDB and whoever else you're getting in, whether you're going whatever, knows that the risk of it. And as always, it's not a never Salah, right? It's a no Salah. It's not a never Salah. So he pops off and you take a 4-point hit to get him in because you realise you're an idiot or whatever, and he's just. Then okay, you do that, and he could blank, and we'll have FPL Twitter going absolutely nuts, which would be hilarious. So
yeah.
Just makes it more fun.
Yeah, I talked about this with Pernille Late Riser on the Fireside Chat, and he's a million times better manager than I am, but it's just you're just making such a huge bet at the start of the season when we basically know nothing. Of all of the things that we know, one of the very few things is we know that Mo's the highest FPL point scorer of all time. And we know he's fit and he starts the season godlike every season. And, you could say, so-and-so has this percent of scoring and Mo has this percent of scoring, and, project that out. But I think that you also have to think of things on a bell curve. There's a range of possibilities in every result, right? It's not that Mo's is static and blah, blah, Holland's is static too. It's no, Holland's range is way wider because he could just get 1 point and play 30 minutes and we've never seen him in the Prem, so we don't really know what the cap is. But Mo's range is pretty small. It would be genuinely shocking if Mo is just not scoring goals in the first 4 game weeks. It's not just that it's the most safe likely. It's that the range of possibilities is also much smaller. The target is just right there for us. So I don't know.
Let's can we call it the over 2.5 goals thing?
Yeah, let's start. The over 2.5. Yes, cool.
Let's look at that.
Slides.
So
it's all good.
So this is Draft Hound, who do some good stuff on bookies odds. So bookies odds percentage of scoring over 2.5 goals. We were looking the other day about win percentages and stuff, and Alon, you said to me, I just want to know who's going to score 4 goals. And it was there is somewhere that sort of tells us that stuff. So this is when you're thinking about attacks of where are we scared and where should we double up on, really?
Yeah.
And it's ranked by game week 1. So it doesn't seem to have like an aggregate percentage. It's just rank it by a week. So we'll do it as game week 1. So for those listening, you've got City at 43%, Tottenham 38% chance that they are going to get to over 2.5 goals, so 3 goals or more. 35% on Liverpool, 35% on Chelsea, drops you to 29% Leicester, 22 United, 21 Arsenal. Away to Palace, it's going to be that kind of.
Yeah.
I see a lot of teams that are doubling up in attack on Arsenal in those first 2 games. And the bookies don't say that's a good idea. I see a lot of people considering double ups on United in the start of the season and those first 2 games. And then it gets a little bit worse.
Yeah.
You know when you reply to something on Twitter and it says, I'm in this tweet and I don't like it. Like here I am, Sancho, Martial, Odegaard, and Jesus.
Yeah,
you're attacking me personally.
I know. I'm on Jesus and Martinelli over here.
And Andy Martin asked a question in the chat a minute ago saying that, a Salah captain is not worried about not having a Spurs or City premium. But hey, the top 2 there, City and Tottenham, as an attacking asset. Like, people are one or the other, aren't they? They are
right.
Haaland or Kane. They're not really doubling up. You don't see many off of them. And then that game week 2 to 5 of City.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous.
Over 50. More likely that he score 3 goals than they don't score 3 goals.
Yeah.
In game weeks 2 to 5.
Terrifying. And this is also like, how does this number change if Haaland braces game week 1? That's going to be like 65% chance. Because this is off the basis of like, we don't really know, and changing leagues is hard, and Bundesliga tax, and like yada yada.
Because I do see a ridiculous world where if you just went on the bookies odds, where you could say the no Salah or the no double up on Liverpool, and be looking at maybe a game week 4 wild card,
right?
And thinking that I'll avoid a few of them till then, like.
Right.
But it's still so hard, isn't it, on City on which ones to pick? Because I must admit, I look at them and it screams to me De Bruyne.
Yeah, I know. I mean, God, this is going into like an ownership discussion immediately, right? Because that was my first initial read. Also, I was like, I mean, Walsh and I agreed on our premium potters. Was like, yeah, I don't think Haaland's a good pick. Like, objectively, if ownership didn't play a role, right? If I'm just making bets against myself, my money against myself, I wouldn't make that bet. But the difference is we're playing a game, and we're playing against like a market, basically, and they all think Haaland's the best pick. So, I tend to agree then. Like I can't give you enough reasons as to why he's bad, because he might just score 1 million goals and take 6 shots a game. Yeah. So, I just corner myself a little bit. But I just wanted to also say, like, I'm not really like a math guy. There's probably people in chat who would be much more eloquent in like sort of describing this. But it's, when I look at stuff like this, I have the same sort of like bell curve range of possibilities in my head, right? Where it's like, the thing I'll say is Spurs are not that likely to score 2.5 goals against Southampton at home. That's when it's run like 10,000 times in a projection, right? And the range is, they could have that, like how they had some bad games in the second half of the season, like the Burnley game, and I think there was like a Brentford game in there or something where they really didn't create much. And those are bad games. And like, yeah, that happens sometimes, but like, there's also a pretty good chance that they just score 5. And I feel like this like doesn't reflect that the range is that wide for Spurs in the bankers. Yeah. And that's why I'm, spoiler alert, I'm on Kane right now over Haaland just for game week 1, because despite the City percentage being higher, what's their range? What's like City's likelihood of scoring 4 or 5 and just blowing them out completely? Like, I feel like it's pretty low. Like that doesn't really happen to West Ham. You know, like it's a much smaller range of possibilities, even though the hitting the 2.5 might be more likely. You know, I'm shooting for a dart that's just they're going to score 5. I'm not shooting for 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way you put that. I love the way you put that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, and then Newcastle one is surprising, I think, is that like Newcastle are down as being sort of almost twice as likely for City to score 3 than Tottenham at home to Wolves. But I think there is that part that, you know, it could be Tottenham score 1.
Yeah.
And that could be 5. If that goal goes in early, it's probably 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of how it goes. Yeah, I'm just looking. Like there was a Burnley game, Brentford, Brighton. Like Tottenham were stifled in those games, you know, and like didn't really score goals. Like,
because Brighton beat us and they beat Arsenal in like 4 days or something like that.
Yeah, Brighton beat everyone in that stretch. But then, you know, like alongside those, there's, you know, 5-0 Norwich, 3-0 Arsenal, 3-1 Leicester, 4-0 Villa, 5-1 Newcastle. So it's like, you know, the range is really wide for Spurs. That's why it's like a little. That's another reason why, you know, I think Mo is just ridiculous. Like there's not. If you look at like bookies odds for who's going to finish top 2 or who's going to get 90 points this season, you know, Spurs are not in the conversation for a reason.
No.
Yeah. And like Andy makes the point quite correctly, and we talk about it all the time, is the points funnel themselves to Son, Kane, Kulusevski really at Tottenham. So it's quite easy to predict where the points are going to come from.
Sure.
Whereas if City score 5, I love that he's used that example, seeing as they beat Wolves by 5, didn't they? And KDB got 4 of them, and he got all of those points. So that's like irony there.
He triple captained him when they scored 4. So Andy Martin has just confirmed on our pod that was a lucky call. We'll take that and move on.
Sure.
Cheers.
The other end, though, Manchester United and Arsenal down there at the sort of 20% chances they score 3. They're the same as City, where you're not really sure who's going to score those goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bit where I look at that and think, double ups.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Arsenal's and Manchester United fans aren't going to be happy to hear this, but I feel like there's very clearly like a top 4. Then there's Arsenal knocking on the door, and then there's another group. And we just don't know what Manchester United is going to do. They're just a huge like mystery. You know, everything seems good and that's cool, but who knows? You know, who knows? But when I think about Jesus, he's the one. I have him Martinelli. Like Martinelli, you know, they could score 3 and Martinelli gets nothing. But Jesus, the way that he's playing and sort of the position that he's playing, which I think is something that you can get value from preseason out of. You know, I don't care if they win or lose.
Yeah.
But I care a lot more if he's center forward, the middle of everything. Like, because he could have just played on the wing. Like there was a world where Arteta just plays him left wing, and I'm just like, he's kind of bad. I'm not sure, you know. But no, he's central to everything. Like I feel like he will be the guy that is the really high involvement guy. I don't think that that's going to be like really hard to predict. I think he's going to be very central to them scoring goals. So that's part of the reason why I like him.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that Jesus signing has improved Arsenal a bit more than I'd like to admit.
I think it has a lot, yeah.
Unfortunately, I think knocking on the door is probably quite right at that top 4. I just hope it's at the detriment of Chelsea and not us, to be honest. Because I think they have improved quite well there, and I think just team shape wise, I think it's just such a huge game, huge upgrade on a Lacazette. It's like they've got Aubameyang back, but somebody that actually wants to play for them.
Yeah,
it feels like that. You know, he had decent goal involvement at the start of last season as well with City. You know, when Pep was playing him up there, and it was excellent up until the point that I brought him in, and then he started playing on the right.
I mean, the bottom line is he's just really good. You know, I think, and I fall into this all the time. You know, if anyone listens to Walsh and I, we're very biased. We're very opinionated on like what we see and how that affects us. But like the things that he does poorly, which might be like finishing and, you know, like stuff like that, it looks bad. Like it looks worse than it actually is bad. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that he does well, which is like linking, creating, his passing and hold up is incredible. You know, getting chances, just mere getting high quality shots in the box. That's way more valuable than missing chances. Like, I could give a fuck if he misses chances. If he gets enough, he's going to score 20 goals. And I'm like, cool, you know?
Yeah.
So it biases in the fact that everyone's like, oh, he sucks, you know, like, oh, Jesus, lol, you know, this much money on him. But it's like, yeah, man, he's just really good. And also, while you were talking, I just looked up West Ham. So they didn't concede more than 3 at all last season. They conceded exactly 3 4 times. And then the rest of the matches was 2 or under. Even against Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, you know, one of the 3s is the Spurs, but the other Spurs, you know, so like that's what I was trying to say with the range of possibilities.
What about then taking the chance on Son with the option of going to KDB as opposed to taking the chance on Kane to go to Haaland?
Yeah, I mean,
you're back to where you were 2-3 weeks ago with that.
Yeah,
I know. I mean, yeah, it still does my head in to like go Haaland over KDB, even though everything in my bones is telling me KDB's just straight up a better pick. Like everything, literally everything is like, he's the better pick. He's safer. He's going to score more points. And the only reason I'm doing it is because 65 or whatever % of people own Haaland. And I'm just like, I just don't want to screw myself over this early. Again, like it's the same thing. While it's this early and while we know nothing, we have to remind ourselves we know nothing.
Yeah.
It feels like with all the data and the we know everything. We know how everything's going to go. If that was the case, no one would play this game because it would be way too easy. If you could just plug it in and be like, no, this guy's going to score more points, we would just all be tied for OR1 and all win. Good job by us. But, you know, we know nothing. And so protecting yourself with a also very good asset. It's not like he's bad, right? I'm saying that I prefer Kev, but like Haaland could just score 30 goals this year and we'd all be like, yep, Haaland. Yeah. You know, they have the best striker for the next decade. No one's surprised. So just going, I think it just makes a lot more sense. Like in a game way, it's just, you got to remember we're playing a fucking game against other people.
Yeah.
There's a few things about freemiums in the chat, and I said on the pod a little while ago about potentially doing the freemium with Son, Kane, and Mo, and
wow,
and then you've got the option of the pivot to De Bruyne or Haaland, whichever way you want to go.
That's kind of fun.
But the one thing I cannot make fit, I can fit an 8 million midfielder. I just cannot fit the Jesus one. And have a good team.
Yeah.
And Jesus is the freemium breaker for me in that sense, is that there's so little that says to me that it's a bad idea. Jesus, it just, everything screams it, you know, it's that he's right. Even the comments, I mean, some of the comments, they do make me laugh because it's like what he's come from. You said that Liverpool are the best 2 teams in the world. The other team would be City.
Yeah.
And his quote said about when he came, he said, they showed me stuff about my statistics and I was so surprised. They want me to come to help to improve as a player. So yeah, that's why I'm here. And I'm like, what? Guardiola knows nothing, mate. Like,
yeah. You think they have just a WhatsApp? Pep is just texting him Arteta. He's like, wait, what did you show him? What are you talking about? Like, he's like, are you on the FPL review? Massive data? Or are you FFS members? What are you showing him there?
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I reckon it was one of those wheels.
Yeah.
You know the wheels.
Yeah.
It's like a comparison versus XYZ.
But I think the fact that immediately, as soon as people talk about Nketiah might take some Martinelli minutes or stuff like that, you're like, oh, okay, we know who's number 1 here. And everyone's in that. Can they play as a 2? They're not, hey, Nketiah did really well at the end of the season. Jesus might not start straight away. It's like, he's playing, mate.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just so hard.
Yeah. And again, like there's not that many things that I think you can learn from preseason, but this is definitely one of them, right? Like this every opportunity and minute that Jesus is on the pitch, he's in the center of the box at the top of the attack. That's all I need to know. Because if he's playing that position with Martinelli, Odegaard, Saka, Partey, Xhaka, Zinchenko passing him the ball, he's going to score a lot of points.
Yeah.
He's going to score a lot of points.
We got a super chat, by the way. Just
they want your Rubik's Cube again.
I know. I'm not doing that again. Not.
I don't know if you've seen this or not, but the man can do a Rubik's Cube in about 2 minutes.
Is that true?
It's quite a fascinating thing. We got him to do it, not on a stream for us, but on a different stream. But it was for the fantasy champ man that we went and played.
You need to make a custom, like above average merch Rubik's Cube with like your faces on it and like Kane and Son and something else.
And then suddenly
you solve it and it's just like boom. Our guest for today's episode is.
this is why you've got the Patreon and why we pay money every month just because we're in a mug league.
I know. I should have gone into marketing.
Right. Firstly, Nihal, thanks for that. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. If anybody else wants to throw us a super chat, then please do. I mean, we're more than grateful.
So you said we know nothing.
Yes.
We've got that pre-season thing that came out the other day from Opta.
Yes.
He's so good at these, isn't he? So good at the chat.
Yeah, I was ready for it. Well, I was ready for it because we were going to do it before this last one. Carry on.
So good. And it's like, does pre-season form translate into winning start? And I think some of this is fun because it's like so much, I feel like, on Twitter and what we see goes on about how well a team does. Mate, I know as a Spurs fan, we were really bad for a long, long time, and Kane and Son were still really good FPL assets. Like teams to an extent, we watch teams sometimes for clean sheets.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just watch the players because it's like, who's getting the minutes and who do I think is going to get the points? Because you can have, like, do I think necessarily like James doesn't do well because I don't really like Chelsea? I'm like, he's played right wing back every game.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to see. If I wanted to see one thing from Chelsea in pre-season, it was James play right wing back and he's playing it. And I'm like,
yeah.
Maybe they have to go to, because when they're in crisis, they have to put all of their best players in their best positions. I don't know. Like, this chart, for anyone that's not seeing it, but basically suggests that no matter how well you do in pre-season doesn't really correlate to how well you do at the start of the season. Yeah. I can remember going to a Spurs game. It was Tottenham Roma. We've got Roma this weekend as well as our final.
I was at that game. We weren't mates then, but
we were not friends then. What was that? 2014?
Something like that. Yeah, it must have been.
We just signed David Bentley for 15 million. And he was genuinely the best player I've ever seen in a pre-season game. And then like 3 years later, he played about 2 games for Tottenham. He threw a bin of water over Harry Redknapp and never played a game. It was
wow.
But like we won 5-0 and I was like, we're winning the league. We are winning the league.
I won money first goal scorer for that as well. I seem to remember winning money first goal scorer for that game.
we had like 18 tickets for that game. I mean, that alone should tell you that if you can get 18 tickets for a game, that we're probably not winning the league that season. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily correlate. Like, what are you looking for in pre-season?
I'm looking for positioning, formation, partnerships, just meaning that like who are they playing with, because then you get a good indication of like, okay, he's first choice.
Yeah.
And then just like individual form, that's it. Like if I don't know, I'm trying to think of like someone who I'm on the fence, or if Perisic starts the next game, Spurs lose 3-1 and look terrible, but he gets the 1 goal and he comes off fit, he's in my team. Like, I could care less on the Spurs performance. I'm just like, oh, Perisic is fit, he's in form, he's playing as far up the pitch as we imagine that he might be playing, done. Like the result just really doesn't matter to me.
Do you want to hear Alistair Gold's quote this evening on Perisic?
Absolutely, I do.
Was asked, will Perisic starts versus Southampton? Alistair says, much depends on fitness. We know about that. He looked sharp in the first half hour against Glasgow. And now the next 2 weeks back up in his fitness. This is his opinion, not Conte. Put it out. it says Perisic and Sessegnon are going to be used in tandem this season. If Perisic can get to the required levels, then he stands a chance of starting against Southampton because he's a real Conte favourite. But I just wonder whether Sessegnon will get the nod for that game to give him a little bit more time.
Yeah, it's scary.
Like, the thing is, it is still a person who's not associated with the club doing a journo quote. He's a good journo, a really good journo in that sense. But we'll see what we see on the weekend. What I know is that 30 minutes, he was ridiculous how much better he was.
Yeah, and we obviously know that Conte loves him, so that's a factor. But we'll have to see. This weekend, after this weekend, like our Monday pod, and I'm sure you guys will do more than one next week probably because you guys do a lot. Like, that's when I think drafts really start to solidify.
Yeah,
because the final tune-up game, I would say 90% of teams are going to play their starting 11 in the first half of that game. Like, their starting 11 for game week 1, it will be the first half of their final preseason game for most teams, for most players, most teams. So, obviously that's going to change what we think.
And City's slightly complicated in that, like, Laporte's not played.
Right.
Foden, Gundo, those type of guys. I see a lot of people thinking that Laporte not playing means that Walker plays a lot, but Ake's supposed to. I haven't watched that much of their games because it's over your way, mate. But Ake's supposed to have been incredible in the first few games, and he likes playing him left back. And West Ham, we talked about it all season long last season. Big boys, they're just lots of big boys.
Yep.
Ake's prime, isn't it? Like, he used to play him left back every season against Burnley. Yep, stick him up against it. Go to West Ham. I firmly expect it to be Ake left back and
I can see that. Yeah,
Walker right, and Cancelo right back, Stones and Diaz in the middle.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what they do in Community Shield.
Yeah.
I mean, Liverpool too. There's just so much, like, every player that I feel like I'm like on the fence with, I feel like I'll be a lot less on the fence with after this weekend.
Chelsea?
I need your guys' help there. I mean, like you said, it's like in the draft that I sent you, which, we're enough of the way out where I'm like, this draft is basically meaningless where I am right now. But I don't have Reece, I don't have Chilwell, I don't have Mendy, and I don't have any Chelsea attacker. I mean, I think I'm just so negatively biased against Reece, and I have to, like, recognize that within myself and be like, I need to overcome this. I mean, he's just an amazing pick, right? Like, they are looking really disorganized, and Tuchel quotes are worrying and whatever, but they got Koulibaly in. Asphal's probably gonna stay. That means the back three is, like, fine. That means Reece is at wing back. The midfielders are fit until they're not, so that's not, like, projecting over the course of the season. I'm very worried about their midfield, but, like, right now it's fine. I mean, Reece is he's just so obvious, right? I mean, there's not really a case against him.
No, I mean, clean sheet odds, we got those.
I mean, and I worry about just cohesion at the start with 2 new centre backs and one, sorry, just Koulibaly.
So this is busy, but it's busier because actually the percentages, like with attacking teams, the double ups and so forth, we're only going to look at a small amount of teams. You've got the odd ones, Adam's very hot on Wolves and Neto.
Yep.
He's not. He's not. We can talk about that later.
Maybe not.
Bad attack. Next.
You've got some other ones, but in defence, because of keepers, because of that, our defender, we might go a bit lower. And when I looked again, bookies odds, you've got Chelsea first up, away to Everton, highest chance of a clean sheet. And then you go along, and I know they've got Tottenham second game, but you look at it and it's like, they're a 40% chance minimum every week. Like, there's still a good defence. And if you're not playing that well, I figure like it's the attack that's, if anything, that's going to be the case. If there's a team that can manage it, I can see Chelsea managing games.
Yeah.
I can see Chelsea managing games.
Regarding Reece's position, I mean, just pure speculation, but just building off of what they were doing last season, you would expect, just looking at the fixtures, that 2 out of the first 6, that's probably Reece at center back. Because
I think it's Reece against Tottenham.
Yeah, Reece at center back against Tottenham is like almost nailed on, I would say, to deal with Son. And then at home, Leicester, if Leicester are like scoring goals,
Harvey Barnes
and Vardy. I mean,
Vardy.
you can't have Vardy running at Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
So
Koulibaly. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. If you factor, 2 of the first 4 potentially, Reece is at center back, maybe a little disjointed to start, and I wonder how these numbers will change as we get closer, right? Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I've talked myself out of Reece. Where I'm like, to begin with, I don't think the fixtures are great clean sheet fixtures, despite what these percentages say, right? Like home Everton, I'd be like banker. That would be like a 60%er on this thing, probably, right? But the fact that it's away and Goodison's going to be up for it and it's going to be raucous, like that's not good. Spurs, I'm surprised it's 39%. Like that seems very high to me.
Well, the Leeds, the Leicester ones, like they're almost in line with Everton, and you're like, that's not the case.
That's not. Yeah, we're not talking about the same attack across the board. Like I don't really understand that. So I have a little dispute, and again, it's 10,000 projections, 100,000 times run the simulation over and over again.
Yeah,
I guess most of the time it's around there, but what's the range? I don't know. We've seen this Chelsea team even under Tuchel just like randomly concede 4, and I feel like at the end of the season they were kind of like not that good, right? They got like, there was that Wolves game where they were up 2-0 and then just got like lit up. Everton beat them and put up decent XG against them, and Arsenal scored 4 against them and they were a complete mess, so I don't know if we're taking anything from that. Brentford destroyed them, I'm not sure, and the thing, sorry, I'm talking way too much, but
that's cool,
the thing
man.
also with
Tuchel,
I guess so. The thing also with Tuchel is that like I really think he's really good. I'm not trying to say he's not a good manager, but before coming to Chelsea and winning the Champions League, no one would have said he's a defensive manager.
No.
Everyone would have said what makes Tuchel a good manager is like he gets a lot out of the attack, and he can make a midfield out of nothing, right? He can turn like Weigl into like a superstar DM, and then like Weigel's like unplayably bad after Tuchel leaves. Like he can like do this kind of stuff. No one's like they're gonna have the best defense in the country when he gets there. That was like a shock, right? And it didn't really. They were still good last season, but it was nowhere near the levels of when he first came in and they won the Champions League. So I'm wondering if there's just like a bit. I don't know. It's just a bit of like the last year and a half they were really good defensively versus like the 7 years of management before that. He was much more of like an attack first manager. I don't really know. I don't know.
I think there is that. Sometimes it does carry on, isn't it? When you see that you have taken something on, I always like to say like Brodge took it on from like Martinez and stuff like that when he got his job at Swansea and onwards. But there's some interesting ones there. And some value, if Tottenham, Newcastle, so Trippier.
Oh.
Let's do it. Let's have the Trippier conversation. 5.0.
Yeah, I mean, he's not in the draft that I sent you guys yesterday or today, whenever that was, but I put stock into the fact that Walsh and I both were basically since the postmortem, so since like mid-May, we were like all over Trippier. Like that was one of the guys that we were just like, he just prints points. Like it's just free real estate. Like they're a pretty good clean sheet team that we all expect to get better with Botman, and we all expect to get better with Pope. And
Pope. We talked about the defenders, but Pope.
Yeah, Pope upgrade, and then we were talking before we started the podcast, but it's sort of like if JWP got clean sheet points, like.
So the guaranteed 150 point player then gets clean sheet points.
Yeah, and whether you think Newcastle are good, meaning 13 or 14 cleans, or bad, meaning still 8 or 9 cleans, like that's still a ton of points. I'm curious what you guys say about him on bonus points, because I haven't gotten to that part in the BPS pod yet. But it's just obviously it's not on pen, so it's not the exact same as JWP. But we're seeing these preseason games where he's like in the final third, open play assist. Love to see that. And then on top of it, he's just world class free kick taker, and it's frees, it's corners, it's all of the above. His delivery is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
just he's just gonna be so good. And you see the fixtures and 8% City, and 10% Liverpool, and you're like, well, why the hell would I ever get this player? And the reason is because you're not going to start him those game weeks,
exactly.
Whether it's
those
Pereira
games,
or Nico or whatever.
Yeah. So Pereira's got home to Brentford, and he has got, who's he got in that? A home to Brighton in the 2 games when they play City and Liverpool. So 9.5 million, and you get 3 games of him and potentially 2 games of Pereira. But hey, look, by game week 3, game week 5, our teams are not going to the same.
Yeah, true.
We
also have transfers.
Wildcarded by then. Do you know what I mean? Things would have happened. And you've got Cucurella, who could have gone to City by then. You've got Zinchenko, could just turn out to be an app. If Zinchenko goes in centre midfield and suddenly looks like he's playing like dual 8s with Odegaard,
then you literally will have JWP with clean
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly that position. I mean,
they're the fun ones.
You were saying about the bonus. I mean, Trippier's baseline is pretty good. At 12.2, it's better than any others apart from Target in the second half of last season.
But he's the most likely to actually do something above the baseline.
Exactly.
Right.
So he's more likely to get above that.
Because in general, they're not a team who gets a lot of bonus points. If you just think about the players on their team, right? The attackers are bad. They have one really good midfielder who's, I'd imagine, extremely good on bones, Bruno, and then that's and then it's Trips probably.
I mean, they definitely improved. They definitely improved from start to end of the season. They were averaging 2 bonus points per game first half, and almost up to 4. In fact, they were just behind Leicester, alongside Chelsea, just above Tottenham in the second half of the season from a bonus points per game perspective. So pretty high. Whether they can continue that, because the scenario is different now, right? The scenario is completely different. They had to win all those games, and they had to win them early in those sort of that 21 to 30 spot, because they had tough games at the end. So I don't mind Trippier, but I just don't like the away fixtures in there. The Forest game's great. The Forest game is great, but then Brighton and Wolves. Yes, I've been shitting on Wolves' attack.
I mean, it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Even worse without Jimenez. So I'm not sure I could go there.
Where are you at on keepers? Huh?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I have Ederson in my most recent draft, which I feel like is sort of the up and coming meta in the Twitter discords of the world, of just, we have that rare opportunity, right, of getting an extra wild card and shortening the stretches of the season where you need to make your picks. I'm a total believer in just getting a 4-5 in normal seasons and just running him out there, and I don't really care what he scores. But we have this unique thing where, again, what do we know? We know basically nothing. But we know that City are probably going to get at least 90 points and probably win the league. That is not a leap of faith at all at this point. That is just carve that into stone, and they're going to keep around 20 clean sheets.
Just those first 5. So West Ham, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Forest. What's your worst case situation? 3?
Yeah, I mean, worst case is probably 3, which means 22 points, assuming he gets 2 pointers in the other 2. You know, like that's a lot of points in a short amount of time. And as much as I'm a believer in the 4-5 in the normal season, in this season, you know, like you go someone like Raya, you go Meslier, you go Pickford, whatever. Like, what's the worst case scenario for those guys? It's like 5 points in 5 game weeks. That's the worst case scenario for those guys. And then you're just 20 points in the hole. Minimum 20 points in the hole.
The Raya ones, just look at those bottom ones, like down the bottom for Raya, 15%, 20%. You're like, 2 million people minimum will wildcard in game week 3.
Yeah, right.
And probably 500,000 of those has Raya in their team.
Yep.
And like, people are mad. People are transfer the boy out by then. He'll be 4.3 by game week 3.
Yep.
Like, it's a problem. Like,
yeah, the season is so weird because all of the good teams have good fixtures, and therefore all of the and therefore all of the bad teams have bad fixtures. Like when you look at the 4-5s, it's just like I don't know, and that's why people are on Meslier, and I understand it. He's like really the only one where you're like, he has a good run of like 7 matches, but Leeds are just. If you know what Leeds are going to do this year, just go to the bookies because you know way more than anyone else in the world.
I mean, you did a gambling pod yesterday. Could you imagine if you said, so the Chelsea keeper's £500,000 more than the Brentford keeper, and let's look at the start of the fixtures.
Right. I mean, listen, even Arsenal.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks ago, I was like, White's hurt, Tomy's hurt, Tierney's always hurt, like nightmare, stay away. Okay, where are we now? It's Zinchenko, probably White or Tomy at right back. Both are serviceable. Saliba Gabriel or Gabriel White or Saliba White center back. I'm like, oh yeah, Ramsdale's just really good pick again. He went from being like I'm staying away to a good pick again. Where Meslier is 4-5 and Ramsdale is 5. He look at his fixtures. Like what are we even talking about?
Yeah, I feel you get more from you'll get more activity from Ramsdale than you would do from Mendy as well. I feel you'll get more opportunity for extra points, save points, bonus points, etc. from Ramsdale.
10 million, boys. 10 million. Pope and Zinchenko, or Ramsdale and Trippier.
I feel like this is like a unsolvable bonus points problem. Like this is an above average only kind of problem where you need like.
Sorry, say that again. I've forgotten them.
So it's 10 million, isn't it? There's a 5 million keeper for both teams, and there's a 5 million defender for both sides. So would you go Zinchenko?
Oh, sorry.
If you wanted one Arsenal, one from Newcastle, would you do Zinchenko and Pope? Or would you look at Ramsdale and Trippier?
I like Ramsdale and Trips actually a lot more after thinking about it more. Yeah, I mean, because Zinchenko, you guys pointed this out right on the BPS spot. Like, we don't really know if he's going to be the same kind of BPS monster because we don't know how that translates from Man City. So that's one. And then the other thing is you could say the same about Pope. Because my personal opinion is that the way that Burnley played is why Pope was such a monster on bonus. Yeah. Not something that he does. Yeah. And he just fucking stands there and stops shots. It's not like he's like creating chances. It's just like what the defense allows to happen is basically if the keeper's good on bones or not. Yeah. And Burnley are so bad that all their other players are bad on bones. So how do we translate that to Newcastle? Well, they're a lot better and they have a lot better players. So I'm like, okay, versus the other one, it's like, I know I love Trips. I know he's good on bones. I know, the set pieces, all that stuff. What's Ramsdale? I know he's good on bones. We just saw it for a whole season. Maybe they fell off in the second half of the season, but also none of their players were fit. So I don't really care that much because they're fit now. Yeah. And so like if you look last season, when they had the starting back 5 and Partey. So that's, Tierney, White, Gab, Tomy, Partey, Ramsdale. They were an elite defense. They were an elite clean sheet team. Not like pretty good. They were like on the level of Liverpool and City good. There were 50% of the games or something were cleans. And then in the games where they didn't have those together, they were a nightmare.
Yeah, you're swinging me. I think there was a real visible drop off in Ramsdale though. So this has made me want to go and do a bit more watch on how Ramsdale is against the shots, because I feel like there were chances that he just felt so up for it, and the chances were some of the things he saved were just out of this world. Whereas that second half of the season, I owned it for most of it, and it was like so many feeble, low down to his left shots that he was just like, I'm not there.
It's hard with keepers, like looking at form and stuff like that, right? Like every keeper, and there's basically one a year who wildly outperforms their post-shot XG on FBref, completely falls off a cliff the next season.
Yeah.
But so like last year it was Sa, otherworldly god of post-shot XG, just like unsustainably good.
+9 or something.
Yeah, +9. Like if he did that again, you're just the best keeper of all time, just like straight up. And he's probably not the best keeper of all time. Just like, let's be honest.
Yep.
So, what does that mean? I mean, I guess form is a weird thing for keepers. It's just harder to like keep track of. It's hard. It's like purely eye test more than it is like a statistical thing. So, Ramsdale was on fire for the first half of the season, above. He was well below, I think, for the second half of the season. Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't really know. I don't know what that means for projecting out the next season.
Yeah, I hadn't also noticed like 3 of the first 5 are at home. So I don't really think of that sort of like who gets the 3 out of 5 and who gets the 2 out of 5 piece. But he has got that, I think, because it's first game away. You're like, I'm not so sure, but swaying a bit back there.
Yeah, I mean, I should have sent you guys this before we started, but like 2 weeks ago or something like that, I did a draft that had White and Tomiyasu in there. And everyone gave me so much shit. Double Arsenal, what are you doing? And so I was like, no, but so I checked my theory basically of like when they were fit, how good were they? And that's why I had that number.
Yeah.
So with the starting back 5 and Partey, they had 10 matches and 5 cleans. If you exclude the matches against the top 6, they're 62.5% cleans, because 2 out of those 10 matches were against teams in the top 6. And then when you go with, they didn't have the starting back 5, but they still had Partey, that goes down to 38.46% of the time they kept cleans, 5 out of 13. But if you exclude the top 6, still good. It was still 50%. So that's still good. And then if you go to the extreme, which is how they ended the season, basically every game at the end of the season didn't have the starting back 5 and didn't have Partey. They kept 2 out of 14 cleans.
They're quite important.
So they're pretty good. Like that, so that's just what I was, because it's one thing to, I know Walsh and I always say on the pod, like, you could tell any story statistically if you want. But like, if I had a job that was like, sell me on X, I could make the case. I think I could make a good case for any fucking player in the league. It's different if you're like, I'm pretty sure this is what's happening. You have a hypothesis, right? Like, it's like the scientific method of like, this is what I think is happening. And then you check the data to see if it matches. I think that that's something that's a lot more concrete, right? Because I'm like, oh yeah, actually exactly what I thought was happening is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Let's move on. So I think we're coming to a rough close. We're over an hour now, so hopefully.
Wow, that flew by,
mate.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone in the chat is still enjoying themselves. If you haven't done so and you are liking what you're listening to, make sure you hit that like button and put on subscribe, and then you'll get all of our content, etc., etc. Because we're over an hour, we're going to move on to your draft. I mean, you've talked about most of the some of the picks in here anyway, so. I mean, so for people listening, you've got Edison in goal. You've got Zinchenko, Perisic, Cancelo, and Trent at the back. You've got Neto, Salah, Martinelli, Luis Diaz, and then Kane and Jesus up top with a 4.5, 4.0 bench. Gazaniga, Nico Williams, Andreas, and Archer on the bench. How set are you?
Yeah.
How set are you there? I know we're saying that we're going to have the Community Shield might change things, but
yeah, I'm doing the quick math. What's 1 out of 15? 0.06. You know, I'm 6% set because
cool.
it's just it's Mo. You know, so like, you know, there's so much more to go. I'm very hesitant to be like I'm set, but I feel good about a lot of the picks is what I'll say. And like as of right now, I feel good about them and I feel good about the draft. Talking it out now and even what we talked about beforehand, like I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice to not have trips. Like I feel that strongly about trips that
we all are.
I mean that's like one of the conclusions, right? And then also I'm kind of Ramsdale curious. You know, so if you know, so and this draft also has 0.5 in the bank. So then I'm thinking like, okay, what do I do with an extra $1 million if I go Zinchenko to Trips and Ederson to Ramsdale? An extra $1 million's a lot. You know, does that mean I go Martinelli to someone? Do I turn Neto into someone? Do I get a good guy first on my bench? Probably not, but it's something to look at. So that's kind of like of the guys that I don't have that we've been talking about this episode. That's sort of like where my head is right now. But a follow-up question for you guys in the BPS is that, so Ben White I still think is a great pick. He's 4-5. How does moving from center back to right back affect his bonus points? Because I think that's his position. I think he will be like a basically conservative right back, or another way to put it is it'll be sort of a 3 at the back because Zinchenko will go forward and they'll kind of like all shift to the left, you know what I mean, to be like a wide center back 3. I don't know.
I think then though the problem is the ripples. So you asked me the other day about Odegaard, and I said he's not quite there on his baseline to get out there. But if he has 2 more key passes because the right back's not crossing, if Saka suddenly, who's got quite a low baseline, has 2 more crosses because the right back's not crossing, like it's the other people. It's still very hard to work it out. That I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. One I was going to ask was about Jack. Because if you don't go Ederson, if you go Ramsdale curious, then it opens up a midfield spot.
Yeah, I mean, Jack is 1,000,000% dependent on the Community Shield team. Like, for now, I'm just reining it in because I want Jack. Jack wants me. It's all a good thing, you know. You what, mate? And I'm just like, yes, that give me all of that. And then, but I need to rein it in because if he doesn't start in the Community Shield, it's a 0%er. Like I'm 0% owning him in my team, not 0.1, 0.
Yeah, and if he does, like, because Foden hasn't played.
Yeah.
So
That's
if he
such
doesn't
an
play,
interesting one, that.
If he doesn't play Foden on the left and he plays Jack, you're like, well, there's no chance Foden starts out.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it's Jack, Holland, X on the right, maybe Mahrez, who knows? They play well. They look good. It's a competitive game.
We're ripping it up.
Do we know what Foden's been? Has he been doing anything? Because he's not travelled because he's ill. He's not travelled because he's not
vaccinated.
Ill. Exactly.
Not vaccinated.
It's not the fact that he's ill or he's injured or anything. He's fit, right? He's fit.
Right.
He could play, but he's just not. The strong rumor, basically confirmed.
Rhythm
is that yeah, true. No, Pep Rhythm, we like that.
We're going to pod on Sunday, man. We can discuss it.
That's true.
You're going to pod on Monday.
Yeah.
We're discussing it.
Yeah, rhythm is a dancer, you know, as they say. Just, you know, I'm just obsessed with trips, obviously, as you can tell. But
we're all ripping it up, mate.
The thing is also,
as soon as we get off this, get it in.
I know. I'm clicking the buttons right now, but as like just all the bonus data from last year that you guys did in your pod is like he's good, right? But if you just allow yourself to dream a little bit and look at what he did with Spurs. He was a monster.
Yeah.
He was a monster. Part of that's just because the team is better. They're keeping more cleans, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, that's not a normal amount of bonus points for a 5 million player who also takes all the set pieces. Like, the guys who got that range of bonus points last season are basically Trent, Cancelo, Reese, Robbo, Okaaaaay, Matip. That's the range that he was in, like top 5 in the league when he was on Spurs. Man, I mean, I gotta get him. You
do gotta get him.
Fair enough.
We're there,
We're there.
Thanks.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Cheers for coming on, Alon. Really
thanks for having me. Yeah.
And guys in the chat, put some appreciation out there for Alon for joining us. He's busy day, clearly, like 3:30 or whatever it is, coming up to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah.
We can't plug it enough, can we? Like for reference to everyone here, me and Adam pay these boys money to be part of their
yeah,
community,
both of us.
And have done for a long time. It was the first thing that I ever paid towards fantasy football was your Discord.
Thank you.
It's amazing fun. Lovely people. And the pod is so criminally underfollowed, underwatched, underlistened to. It's a madness. You know, I talked to Pranel Late Riser before, and we were talking about why do we do it? And I was like, you'll hear this tonight, but nobody talks about it in such a fluid way, FPL and football. We're football fans and mates that decided to do an FPL pod. You guys, and I mean, there's loads of others which are very FPL pods, but I'm not sure about that football. You guys do both. And I always think like, you get the romance, like football, it's the romance. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a nice rom-com, it's the romance side of it. And then you got the other side, which is like the fun documentary, and then you put them together and it's
so fluid that you actually, you approach it and you come in thinking it's just a football pod, and then suddenly, just out of nowhere, the stats enter the conversation, and they work their way in, and then they're out again, and then you just move back onto the football. It's really smooth and really great to listen to, man.
Thanks
so
so much.
I mean, you might even be offended by this because of the American sports space and stuff, but like I've watched Moneyball about 50 times, right? And I always say like every week of FML is like watching Moneyball, because it's just you get both sides of the way that you work, and it's like I could just keep watching it and enjoy it.
Thank you. I mean, it means a lot, guys. Thanks so much. It was great to be on the pod. I'm fans of your guys' too.
Hopefully a request in the chat
this year.
You've got a request in the chat. It's on the screen. You should be able to read it.
Can we get an okay?
Can we get
you got to do it now.
You want it?
We want it.
Well, look, let's just before you do that, I can see you preparing yourself.
Yeah, I gotta take a sip of water.
Nihal, if you're still on, I don't know whether you saw that, but I had a mixed up Rubik's Cube earlier, but I do have now one that's finished, which is just for you, for your super chat.
Very good. All right, let me do an okay.
You're on,
I guess
man.
we're getting out of there.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yes. Love it.
That's what we came for. Boys.
That's what we're here for. Cool, man. Right, Alon, thank you again. Baker, good to speak to you again as always, mate.
See you in a few days, mate.
Speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.